Oh, you know, it's spoiler time. What's up, guys? I love Pencil here, and here we want to do a breakdown slash, I can't say live reaction, because I did read through the spoilers this time. So, here we are to do a breakdown of the spoilers for chapter 255, question mark, exclamation point, I think it's 55, of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as the decisive battle in the Unheaven Demon Phase Juku Part 27? Well, I should have just read the chapter this time, but did not even begin to consider the ramifications of what chapter we're on. But with that being the case, I'm very, very interested with the results of this chapter for two reasons. You know what those two reasons are. It's a two-word phrase. It starts with black and ends with flash. But with that being the case, let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me. Ready. 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Kusakabe is alive. Notably, that's the biggest thing that I think is nice to have confirmed this chapter. Like, obviously, the appearance of LaRue and the reveal of both LaRue and Miguel's curse techniques are massive revelations for this chapter. And honestly, why Miguel is even strong is also another massive revelation for this chapter. But at least the main thing I was worried about at the end of last chapter was the fact that we just didn't see Kusakabe's body. Like, it just wasn't there. That scared me. So, like, I'm more than happy to see that Kusakabe made it out, specifically with LaRue's curse technique. And notably, Uyui is okay. Like, perfectly fine. Miguel let him down. Though, that's interesting. Once again, I meant to mention this in the long review. Did I ever post that? Oh, sweet Mother Mercy. I don't think I ever posted that. I need to still post the long review. I'll probably get like 2 views, but still, I'm going to post it. But with that being the case, I was wondering, like, hey, how did Miguel do what he did at the speed he did? And, like, considering it was LaRue who used his curse technique on Kusakabe, I guess Miguel legit just blitzed past Sukuna, grabbed Uyui, and dipped. Which is very, very impressive. But with that being the case, we also get to see that not only is Miguel and LaRue here, but we get to see the whole reason why Miguel and LaRue are here. We cut back to a certain scene in Africa, where it's not Gojo yet, at least. We cut back to a certain scene in Africa where we find LaRue and Yuta asking for Miguel's help to come and, you know, deal with Sukuna, naturally. And one thing I do like here is that Miguel's like, why? Especially considering, like, he's most likely considering it from the perspective that Kusakabe was considering it from at first, where he's like, I mean, for real, he's gonna bother y'all. I live legitimately a whole landmass away. There's no reason bro should come all the way to haunt me. Which is, like, that's the thing. I can't necessarily fault Miguel for his logic there, because, like, why throw yourself into the jaws of death for literally no reason? If you assume that the jaws of death are not going to come and get you anyway. Like, notably, I would get it if it was, like, something that would actively go to move and destroy the world. I completely understand that. But at the same time, I completely understand Miguel here, where he's like, that's your problem. Why are you bringing it here? But with it being the case, we see it was LaRue and Yuta specifically who came to ask for help. And you know it's serious because LaRue is actually fully dressed here. But with it being the case, we see that Miguel's like, dude, I'm gonna love with you real quick, bucko. Like, it could be anything. It could be the King Curses. It could be a weird, crazy, cursed energy conglomerate that's going to destroy the entire world. I would sooner fight that than I would fight Ryoma and Sukuna. Which just goes to show, like, despite Ryoma and Sukuna not even existing at the time of Zero, like, the legend and lore of Ryoma and Sukuna has spread everywhere. Meaning, Miguel's like, no, I'm not doing that. Which is especially makes sense, because he brings up the fact that if this thing beats Satoru Gojo, what would I, the guy who lost to Satoru Gojo, be able to do in this scenario? Which, once again, just makes sense. Like, that's the thing, I can't even knock Miguel's hustle here. Though, admittedly, I do kind of get the it's now or never mindset that Yuta's trying to, like, I mean, Bago, we got to do this now. If we don't, he claps all of our cheeks, like, eventually. Because, yeah, of course, Miguel, nor his entire nation, or his entire continent, or the entire rest of the world would be able to stop Sukuna if Sukuna just takes the time to recover, heal, and then do whatever he wants after that. So, yeah, this is the time to strike. And notably, Yuta just can't convince him at first. It really just comes down to Miguel and LaRue having a conversation. And notably, LaRue is just like, hey, I'll be real with you, Bago. I'm just trying to do this for Geto. Not to avenge him, not on anything like that, but you and I both know we cared for Geto. We cared for Geto deeply. Thusly, the natural thing to do in this scenario would be to pay our respects. Essentially, consider this battle something of a rite of passage, a funeral rite, if you will. Kind of like a final battle for those who are in the great beyond. And hopefully, if they make it through, then they'll just wave goodbye. But if they don't, they'll join them. And notably, that is what gets Miguel. Unfortunately, I wish this could hit more emotionally, but we just have so little context for LaRue. Like, I legit forgot the character's name. Like, I had no idea who this was until I, like, started looking. Until I started actively looking. I'm not even sure if he was name dropped before this, but I'm pretty sure he was, because where else would they get the name from? But I wish I could get more and respect more and understand more the dynamic between Miguel and LaRue and Nanako and Mimiko and, like, Geto's whole entire family, but they get so little screen time that, like, it rings hollow emotionally to me. But I do like that emotional connection is enough to, like, bring Miguel to the battlefield, right? Like, it's that measure where I don't get it because I barely know these characters as much as I will turn into a Miguel Glazer in a heartbeat, especially after this chapter. I can't really. It's not bringing tears to my eyes. Your boy's not going to start crying, which is unfortunate. Once again, it's kind of a byproduct of JJK moving at the pace it does and Zero being structured the way it is. Like, you kind of can't have any sort of emotional connection to these characters without doing extensive flashback arcs, which Gege just wasn't interested in doing. It's the unfortunate byproduct of something like Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Where, like, there are so many characters who have so many deep character bonds, but unfortunately, those things kind of just have to be stated. It's a lot of tell, don't show. And whenever we do show, it's very, very short. Which, unfortunately, even with the long time exposure of a weekly manga series, it doesn't sink in. Especially when the short spurts are for characters who you know will not be that important. My brain is immediately thinking to, like, the Hana flashback in that one chapter. No one cared for Hana after that. And then, of course, she fumbled later, which extra made people not care for Hana. But let's see. So, with that being the case, with LaRue and Miguel deciding, might as well pull up, they decided to pull up on the conditions that, 1, it's after Yuta fights, and 2, Sukuna needs to have bad RCT and no domain expansion. Essentially, they want the easiest Sukuna to come and jump, which, once again, makes sense. Other than the conditions that, like, they want to live, yeah, why would you fight Sukuna in any other way, state, shape, and or form? You wouldn't. So, I don't blame them. Though, they look upon the King of Curses in the present day and are like, well, time to cook. And they immediately get ready to start cooking. And one thing I do like is that both recognize the sorry state that Sukuna's in and are like, thanks, Sato to Gojo. You did a good job. You left a nice gift from the grave, which is sweet. However, of course, we see Sukuna being like, I legit do not know who either of you are. You're from the prequel series, aren't you? I have something for you. And he immediately goes to level the entire building they're on. However, notably, Uui has seemingly enough teleported away, which is good. I do think losing our white mage at this point, losing our teleport bot would be horrid. Like, it's kind of like in Fire Emblem, where, like, you lose your one unit that can use the warp staff. Or if you're playing 3 houses, you lose your one unit that has warp. It may only be 2 uses, but those warps can come in clutch. So, like, I do completely respect getting the white mage out of there. And presumably Kusakabe went with him to be healed. Oh, and another thing, Kusakabe is alive. Like I kind of assumed at the end of the last chapter, Kusakabe didn't actually get got. Like, you see his eyes are open here. So, like, Sukuna just light slashed him. Why? Whatever. Pretty out of respect. But with that being the case, Kusakabe is very likely to return, especially considering it seems like his wounds aren't that grievous, even with the less efficient output of something like RCT on other people. I would not be shocked if Kusakabe just, like that's a horrid sound effect to use in that scenario. But, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he just got back up and was like, Why I oughta? Because why not? I don't know. I mean, bring people back. This is literally the chapter bringing people back. With that being the case, we see that LaRue tries to hop in the 1v1 with Sukuna. They use their curse technique, which I already forget the name of, but that's what officials are for. But with that being the case, not officials, or just translation in general, uses the curse technique. I believe it's something like Auspicious Grip, Giga Grip, Juicy, Scrumdiddlyumptious, something grip. Whatever the grip would be. However, we see it snatches up Sukuna and then, impressively enough, slams him into the wall. However, once again, considering this is Realm and Sukuna, like, well, actually, yeah, he's there. He does get slammed to the wall, but it's Realm and Sukuna. And while people were hyped for Miguel, I don't even think we got to see LaRue fight in Zero, whether that be in the original run of the 4-chapter volume and or in the movie. So, like, obviously there is going to be no hype for LaRue, and that's why Sukuna immediately recovers, gets out, and starts going crazy. Even destroys the hand that slammed him in there. And then we see Miguel lunges in. Now, this is where it gets juicy. Miguel starts bobbing and weaving dismantles. Now, I believe it was in the translations he's using capoeira here. 1, very, very impressive. 2, I wonder, and I'm interested to see how the translations address it, how does he know? Can he legit just see them? I don't know. That's what's kind of confusing me. I don't know if Bro can, like, actually just straight up see dismantles at this point, or if it's, like, instinctual. Because notably, his curse technique apparently acts as, like, a universal domain. Not in the same way that Kusakabe's symbol domain did, but apparently his technique buffs him, but debuffs his opponent. So maybe as part of the debuffs, at least for him in this regard, the dismantles become visible, and he gains enough speed and he has enough base reinforcement to casually dodge them all, which is still very, very impressive. Notably, he's the only character outside of Maki, and I guess, then again, did Gojo even dodge that first dismantle from Laguna? Or did it bounce off Infinity? I'm not sure which one, but I think Miguel joins the club of only Maki and maybe Gojo to explicitly dodge dismantles. Like, dodge them. At least this cleanly. Notably, Kusakabe had to use auto domain hacks, which this isn't implied to be. I think Miguel's, his technique, at least in the rough translations I got, are like described like a domain. They aren't actually a domain. So, it's not like he has auto dodge hacks on. He just has a buff, and Sukuna has a debuff, which is still, it means he's not dodging full speed dismantles, being it is technically still less impressive than Maki, considering this Sukuna should be, actually no, this is still, you could argue this is still in the same league, if not slightly better than Maki, even with the debuff, because he hit a Black Flash. Meaning, but then again, if you think, that's the thing, if you think dismantle speeds are uniform, and buffing them or debuffing them would only affect their like damage, not necessarily their speed, then ultimately this is still just as impressive because all dismantle speeds are uniform apparently. But if you think that dismantle speeds vary depending on the state of Sukuna and he can vary how fast he fires them, then while this is nebulous, it still is very, very impressive that Miguel's able to just bob and weave all of them and take literally no damage. And we see LaRue immediately tries to combo back in, but it doesn't work out. Notably, they need to save themselves. Apparently, the hand that LaRue summons can be destroyed, but every time it is destroyed, he takes back about 1/10 of the damage. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that means. Like, does the hand represent to his entire body? Does 1/10 of the damage just mean 1/10 of the damage to his own hand? If that's so, that's a lot better than hypothetically losing 1/10 of your own body. But once again, we don't necessarily get too much exploration on this, and I highly doubt we will. I mean, outside that one slamming Sukuna into the wall feat, I highly doubt we're going to be getting many LaRue hype videos. But that being the case, we see that Sukuna and Miguel get ready to genuinely start boxing. Even Sukuna's like, okay, something special about you. I see the vision. And Miguel, he legit, I think like he's implied to be casually just quick stepping through dismantle slices, which is also still crazy. Like, notably, Miguel as a character has definitely been outright mysterious, but one of the main things I praised him for the longest time was his sheer bulk. Like, especially once it was revealed during the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, that Gojo, at least for the past couple of years, has been consistently imbuing his fists with blue. And, like, they do crazy damage to people like Yuta Okotsu and like Hakari Kinji. to one who's known as the second only to Satoru Gojo, and one who's apparently on the same level as Yuta Kotsu. I say apparently. I'm sorry, Hikari fans. When he comes back, we can talk. When he comes back, we can talk. I'm waiting. We got a whole bunch of characters back before we got Hikari back. I'm sorry, Hikari fans. I'm not saying it's getting embarrassing, but it is getting sad. But with that being the case, I praise Miguel for his bulk, his durability, because at least in the movie adaptation, I forget how much he takes in the manga, but at least in the movie adaptation, he eats like a bunch of hits from Satoru Gojo. Now, notably, he did have the black rope, so maybe the blue hits weren't as effective, but as we've seen, even regular punches and hits from Satoru Gojo are able to like tear apart special grade curses. And Miguel just ate those. So, like, I was giving him credit to his durability, his overall stat spread being this good, and his ability to dodge and bob and weave being this impressive. Good stuff. I can see why he trained Yuta, essentially, at this point. Because, no, even Yuta couldn't dodge. Like, outside of maybe one instance where it looks like he kind of dodges a cleave outside of his domain, Yuta never dodges dismantles. Even when he's buffed in his own domain, he never dodges nor deflects them. And once again, I just generally think it's because he can't. Like, notably, I've seen arguments of people saying, well, there's no need for you to dodge dismantles. If he could dodge the dismantles, I think he would, because that would save curse energy and make it way more efficient on healing. Like, if he could have easily weaved Sukuna's dismantles, I think he could have, or would have, but he didn't. So I think Miguel kind of, but once again, that comes down to his curse technique and like the nebulous nature of how much it's buffing and whether or not you think dismantles have uniform speed. And of course, this is a much worse state that Sukuna's in right now, even with the Black Flash restoring his output somewhat. So we see that ultimately Gojo mentions why he finds Miguel so dangerous. It's a combination of factors. Number one, it's the fact that Miguel is just generally strong. Like, he has good curse energy reinforcement, and he has a solid enough technique. But also, it's for the fact that Miguel is a powerful sorcerer from Africa. Those things typically don't mix, considering sorcery is notably amplified, raised, and studied well in Japan. Africa's sort of an outlier. Like, legitimately, look at Africa and Japan on a map. There's literally an entire continent between them. And like some water. So for Miguel to be as powerful as he is, it is a pretty crazy exception. But apparently Gojo Satoru himself, presumably post the freeing period, came and requested Miguel. Which is nice, because Miguel earlier on in the chapter does make the note of like, hey, Gojo himself needs to come here and beg if he really want me to come throw hands. And looks like Gojo did. He teleported over to bring Miguel back. And Miguel... Well, no. The thing is, Gojo explains that ultimately, while he would be, once again, it kind of like, he says without techniques, which admittedly, we see Gojo without techniques is still very, very powerful, but obviously not as powerful as Gojo with techniques. But he explains that ultimately, while he may be a better defensive fighter than Miguel, Miguel excels in offensive fighting. I believe it's something like line striking that Miguel does, that it ultimately makes him just as dangerous, quote unquote, as Satoru Gojo. And I get why, like, the narrator and stuff was, like, hyping Miguel up to be, like, on par with Satoru in that sense, but still, once again, I can't necessarily slop Miguel off too much for this, though I can slop off speed. Once again, we're getting a lot of speed demons towards the back half. And that's if you assume dismantles are uniform in speed. That's the main thing. If you assume they're uniform in speed, then we're getting a lot of weird speed demons. Like, Kusakabe gets praised for his reaction time. Miguel's out here dodging dismantles. Maki's out here reflecting and blocking dismantles. Like, we've just been getting sequence after sequence after sequence of speed demons. And with that being the case, we see that Miguel starts using that attacking style on Sukuna and notably buries his fist in Sukuna's chest. Once again, this isn't the craziest because it's a super nerf Sukuna, but at the same time, to just be able to grab Sukuna's wrist, pull it aside, and essentially shove it in his gut. Impressive stuff, Miguel. Impressive stuff. And we see that ultimately, Miguel, I'm not going to say he starts giving Sukuna the work here, because it really is just this one interaction. But still, the fact he's able to land this hit is impressive. And then he kind of just starts dragging Sukuna around, and notably seems to set him up for something. But Sukuna, I'm not sure if this is just... I'm pretty sure this is curse energy perception, because notably Choso does have cursed energy. But here we go, Choso is alive. I've been seeing like a lot of back and forth everywhere. Like, a lot of people were assuming that like Itadori was hallucinating. I wasn't exactly sure where that came from. I thought it would be a neat enough idea, but yeah, Choso's alive. Like, Sukuna dodges and reacts to his piercing blood here. So, like, there you go. I don't know. A lot of people are kind of trying to put Choso in the grave. I was trying to put Choso in the grave. But, like, he is alive, which is fun enough. Though, notably, of course, like, he's not going to be able to attack Sukuna with his piercing blood. It's way too slow, and notably, he even has to angle it here, which, once again, lowers the speed of it. And if we have Sukuna out here just manhandling and blitzing completed Maki, of course Choso was never going to land that piercing blood. However, Choso's back in the battle, along with Haru and Miguel, but we don't stop there, because from the heavens, from the top rope, boom! Yuji Itadori lands in with a sledgehammer. I don't know, something about the sledgehammer always goes different. But notably, Sukuna does block it in time. But remember, Yuji's one of the few characters who blocking the hits of, for Sukuna at least, isn't necessarily that effective because of the soul damage thing. But of course, here's my big thing with the soul damage, and I'll go more in depth on this in the actual review and probably in my length and spoiler discussion. What does the soul damage actually do if Megami's not taking control? Like, notably, I guess it opens the door to Megami, but, like, does it actually do anything? I get it lowers his output, but what does that mean? Like, in the grand scheme of it, like, how much? How much weaker is Sukuna? Where's the comparison? That's the thing with, and it's a complaint I'm going to make, especially after this chapter, and he's got another Black Flash at the end of the chapter. If you didn't know, now you know. How much does anything mean? Because simultaneously I'm being told it means nothing, but apparently it means everything. But with that being the case, we see him sledgehammer Sukuna, but not only that. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Yeah, baby. Suddenly, Sukuna's arm just disappears. It just straight, boop, gone. Like that. Admittedly, here's my thing, though. As much as I'm gonna slop off Maki for this, and I can't really. I'm not gonna fully slop off. But as much as I'm gonna gas up Maki for this, it is actually a little bit crazy that she took that little of an arm when she had that much of an opening. Why not bisect him? Like, once again, at this point, it's too risky. Like, and especially since Maki, he just hit a Black Flash on you. You know he's in the zone. I'll admit, once again, I run into the same issue that I'm running into right now, where Megami's not worth all this. He's not, just awful. Like, legitimately, he's not worth it. He's not. Maki could have executed Sukuna right here. Let's be real. He had no idea she was there. Because notably, his arm straight up vanishes. And he's like, wait a minute, what the heck? And then he notices Maki's endings right there. She took his arm. Which is, like, notably, at least to me, I'm not sure, because it's very vague. I don't even think she went back. Like, I don't think Uyui picked her up, took her to Shoko, had Shoko. I think she just blocked the Black Flash, like, did a little bit of, like, that, like, Frankenstein-esque regeneration, then got back up. Like, no, she took no damage. Well, not no damage, but she took damage and was hit by a Sukuna Black Flash, but she's looking fine. Which, once again, is vague. It's vague on whether or not Uyui is responsible for this. Maybe Uyui is. Once again, the low-end interpretation is that Uyui is responsible for this. She was actually in dire straits. It's just that, due to her heavily restriction body, she took to the RCT easier. And then, like, Shoko just had to, like, smack her once, and then, boom, she was able to get back on the battlefield. But at least based on how it's interpreted here, with Uyui, 1, never grabbing Maki, at least on panel, 2, Maki simply reappearing, and 3, it being established that she did have a healing factor, and time passed, who knows, it may have been 5 minutes for the Kusakabe fight. Remember, the Kusakabe fight was explicitly meant to stall. I think Maki legit just got hit, spat it off, and then just got back on the battlefield, which is, that's like, he's my girl. But she does fumble. I'll admit, once again, it's especially considering what happens immediately after this, right? She takes off Sukuna's arm, which is good, because notably, it gets revealed in this chapter how Ryo and Sukuna used World Slash on Satoru Gojo. He cheated. He used the Binding Vow. He used the Binding Vow on the first World Slash in order to bypass any sort of restrictions for it. In order to extend his technique, he put a Binding Vow that he needs to use hand signs, a chant, and, like, he needs the points to aim it. He did all that specifically in order to get World Slash off on Satoru Gojo while he was missing an arm. And that means he skipped every single phase. He essentially did a no-cost World Slash with a cost of, like, needing to do signs and stuff later. So that's how he beat Satoru Gojo. That explains why Gojo didn't hear it. It explains why he probably didn't see any Cursed Energy Spark. That explains why Satoru Gojo fell. I'm happy we got that. I'll take that. Is it a little bit too late? Not really. I'm more than happy to take that, even if it is a whole darn near 20 chapters out. Finally having that explained, good stuff. I didn't even, like, notably, for all the explanations, I never even saw a Binding Vow explanation. Because a lot of us were confused. Like, how did he aim it then? Like, notably, he doesn't even point at Satoru. But, Good stuff, good stuff. However, with that being the case, Yuji gets a little bit too excited. He's like, yes, we can do this. We can win this. It's our time. But of course, you know, the poor Yuji boy, he didn't know the truth. And the truth was that Ryoma Sukuna was in the zone, and LaRue was but a target to beat Black Flash. And if you remember, it was only after the second Black Flash the RCT output of Satoru Gojo was restored. So now, the king gets closer and closer to his prime. But, with that being the case, Sukuna's output is restored. His RCT output is restored now. Question is, though, how quickly will that let him heal his heart, and how quickly will that let him heal his severed arm? Notably, and also, will that allow him to finally heal his brain? Because that's the big question. That's a big thing that a lot of Hikari fans are wondering about. Because assumedly, everyone's waiting for it, right? Everyone's waiting for Sukuna to get domain back, everyone to retreat, and then for Hikari Kenji to drop from the heavens, and then Chad walk Maharaga through it. Like, everyone's waiting for that. So it may finally be that time. But the thing is, though, remember, even when Satoru Gojo landed 4 Black Flashes, his brain wasn't healed enough to get RCT back. Or get domain back. Weird, right? But at the same time, Sukuna's RCT deficiency and brain damage was different from Gojo's brain damage. Gojo's brain damage comes from an overusage of domain expansion. Sukuna's brain damage comes from a slight overusage of domain expansion plus the unlimited void after effects. So maybe he won't get domain back, but he's going to get those arms back. He's going to get ready, easy access to World Slash back. But, of course, the main thing we need to worry about is him opening some boxes. Because clearly, I think if this chapter is trying to portray anything, it's that Dismantle and Cleave, while still useful, has become much less effective. He's had 3 characters so far, back to back to back, who've all shown the ability, especially if Dismantle speeds are uniform, all shown the ability to just avoid it. Whether it be Miguel, whether it be Maki, whether it be Kusakabe, everyone's done it. Not everyone, but characters are doing it now. So I think maybe Sukuna's finally going to use some of this restored output, use the fact that they've kind of adapted to his Cleave and Dismantle, and finally just switch up a little bit. And if he switches up a little bit, we're in danger. However, I'm going on way too long for this to be a quick spoiler discussion. I hope you guys enjoy. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave breaking it down. Like breaking it down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter, along with ad-free variations of all my videos. And if you want a $25 Patreon or $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. And also, if you want to make a one-time donation, there's a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dak with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: O'Connor Plays, Greyhound, Akids Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, Teen Midgao, Querencia Tala, and Red Wolf 4765. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Panda Goat, Midnight Lord 21, Marcus, Kevin, Igneal, and Ehak1. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $7 members: Autumn's Mornings Lazo and Sick Addiction. And I'd like to give a hefty thank you to our $10 member, Banana Phone. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 patrons: Joaquin, Jermaine, and Idemokami. And I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, China Doll 09. And another gargantuan, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.